From the beginning, hip hop has always been a voice for the voiceless. Hip hop was created by black people to give other black people a voice and an outlet from the struggle they face on a day to day basis. Fast forward 40 years later, and the same thing can be said for all types of people who feel like an outcast, since hip hop is now the biggest genre in the world. Today, I want to focus on a group of people who don't get nearly as much attention as I would like to see, being the members of the LGBTQ community. The 2010s have seen a massive spike in queer artists compared to other decades as social norms have changed vastly since hip hop has started. However, they are still a minority in the genre as a whole, with only a select few in the mainstream. In this video, I want to shine a light on these artists, explaining their history and also explain why there are so few and why representation is important. This topic as a whole means a lot to me as I am a part of this community and love hip hop and want to help people learn as much as possible. Unfortunately, there isn't that much recorded history for queer hip hop artists, but I'll do what I have. The homo hop movement first emerged in the late 90s and was done to combat all the homophobia that was present in the mainstream, with the biggest offender being Eminem. The term homo hop was created by the California rapper TMTOS, who was also the founder of Deep Dick Collective. Fast forward to 2002 and 2003, where homo hop got a huge boost in publicity thanks to rapper Caution being able to sign to a major label and was the first openly gay rapper to do so. In 2004, Kanye West became one of the first major mainstream rappers to be against homophobia, which is almost unheard of at the time. In 2008, artist Gypsy released the single Middle of the Dance Floor, which spent 14 weeks on the Billboard Dance Club party and peaked at number 6. This marked the first time an openly gay white rapper had this much commercial success. In 2009, he also released a cover of I Want Your Sex by George Michael, which peaked at number 4, but only stayed for 4 weeks. But this was the first time a queer hip hop artist got a song on a top 5 of a Billboard. The most successful queer rapper of the 2000s was Caswell, as he was able to snag 6 Billboard Top 40 hits. Fast forward to the 2010s, and there is a new generation of LGBTQ hip hop artists in the mainstream. Instead of taking influence from homo hop, however, these artists took influence from LGBT African ball culture, which includes art forms such as drag. In 2012, Pitchfork released an article about NYC queer rappers, those being Mickey Blanco, Leaf, Zebra Cats, and House of Ladosha, the first 3 being some of the biggest faces of this new wave of homo hop. Fast forward again to 2018, where Kevin Abstract of hip hop boy band Brockhampton openly speaks on helping the landscape, saying, I have to exist in a homophobic space in order to make change, and that homophobic space would be the hip hop community. So, me existing and being myself is making change and making things easier for other queer kids. Kevin isn't the only queer hip hop artist to reach widespread mainstream success. Tyler the Creator and Lil Nas X are some of the biggest examples, as well as other artists who are affiliated with these rappers but aren't strictly hip hop, such as Frank Ocean, Steve Lacy, and Sid the Kid. Hip hop has always been filled with homophobia from the way rappers act to the lyrics themselves. But first, what exactly is homophobia? Homophobia is any negative prejudice or form of discrimination to people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. This may be expressed as antipathy, contempt, prejudice, aversion, hatred, irrational fear, and is sometimes related to religious beliefs. Now, why is there so much in hip hop? Well, let's go back to the roots of it all. Hip hop is deeply rooted in black culture. A large portion of the black community is homophobic. As stated previously, homophobia comes from fear, usually fear from the unknown and the confusion that comes from it all, as well as stubbornness to learn and not be open minded. I believe a huge reason as to why there's so much homophobia is because how marginalized we've been. The European style of a household and Western religions such as Christianity have been forced upon us so much, and we have projected those toxic ways of thinking down to other generations. The gender norms of a man being emotionless and having to be the figurehead of the household and other stereotypes is so fixated that when someone deviates or even worse does not like it at all, they flip out. Same goes for women and how they're supposed to act. This translates to hip hop with how a rapper is supposed to act. Homophobia seems to be much more prevalent in men as it stems from toxic masculinity. Traits of toxic masculinity include objectifying women, promiscuity, excessive violence, emotionlessness, and finding anything to be feminine and disassociating themselves from such things in misguided attempts to maintain their masculinity. And that's where a huge part of the problem lies. Men are scared to be seen as less manly. And if they don't cater to these stereotypes all the time, or if they allow others to not cater to these stereotypes, then there will be less manlyhood in other races or others in general, will see them as lesser. At least that's their logic. Especially for black men, many of whom don't grow up with fathers and already have so little, they are very protective of the very few things they do have. Black lesbians, and lesbians in general, don't have it much better. Many are seen as less than women by both men and women. Many of these men love to fetishize lesbians because of the sexual desire to have what they can't. Men are okay with lesbian relationships as they see it's deemed to serve them. Women seem to be more accepting of gay males as they are closer to how other women act stereotypically, and they are special compared to other women because of their gender. As far as bisexual and pansexual goes, they are either shunned or fetishized depending on the situation. For men, many fetishize bi/pans women because of how taboo it is, and the fact that they are also attracted to men is like teasing. On the other hand, many women don't like bi/pans men as they are seen as lesser men, and while they are still attracted to women, they aren't full men, and men are even afraid of being cheated on by another man, or being mocked because their boyfriend isn't a traditional man. These stereotypes can also be flipped for either gender. This can also be said for men who are naturally more feminine as well as the women who are naturally more masculine and transgender men and women. They are not seen as what they are because they don't align with stereotypes, so they get alienated. Same thing happens in rap. How many gay, lesbian, bi, pans, and trans hip hop artists are seen in the mainstream? Exactly. They are not seen as equals. It also doesn't help that slurs such as faggot, the D word, the T word, and its general homophobic lyrics are normalized and are only recently getting flack for being used by those who cannot. Many large artists since the 80s have said all kinds of homophobic lines, from the Beastie Boys to Ice-T to Eminem to Tyler the Creator to J. Cole and many, many more. However, when asked about these words, most artists say they're not being homophobic. They usually attribute to ignorance, trolling, or just not using it in a homophobic/demeaning way to queer people/artists. But in the end, all of this is what makes it so difficult for LGBT artists to have a platform. As stated previously, hip hop is a place for those who feel isolated from the rest of the world. It is only right that we allow people of all sexualities to have a place. This is where representation can have a play. With representation, we can allow for hip hop to get a much wider audience. If more openly queer artists are in the mainstream, it will show queer listeners that there is a place for them and they aren't alone. It can also lead to more general acceptance in the community. If a hip hop head sees an artist they highly respect and just happens to be gay, it could be a learning experience for them, showing that anyone can make dope music. Finally, representation will allow for hip hop to grow even more as a genre. It will allow for more stories, sounds, perspectives, etc. to be in the realm of hip hop and won't grow stale as a genre. That's the video. Hope you enjoyed. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear more perspectives and learn about this topic as much as I can. Thank you for watching.